can do as an organisation which has come to the conclusion that the parties and the factions have completely compromised representative democracy. As Edmund Burke said, you elect your representative for his opinion. We now know that the representatives don't give their own opinion, they act on instructions. But that apart, one of the wonderful things about direct democracy is that very old English institution which has been taken on by the Americans with great glee, and that is the grand jury, guaranteed in the federal constitution, which autonomously, without some DPP or some government official or a minister saying investigate this, the grand jury of 25 citizens can themselves investigate a matter which they think is appropriate for investigation concerning corruption in public life, for example, and they can come to a recommendation as to whether there should be a prosecution. It's a wonderful institution. We do have the Royal Commission. The Royal Commission is superb, provided, of course, you appoint the right Royal Commissioners, and provided sometimes you do need independent journalists, as we saw in the Queensland Royal Commission into the floods in Brisbane. You do need independent journalists advising the Royal Commissioners on what they might have missed. But in relation to the AWU, in relation to this extraordinary fraud and the failure, the continuing failure of the leadership of this union, and you might say the same of the HSU, the failure of the leadership to look after the interests of their members, to get this money back, to ensure proper standards of the union, is there a need for a Royal Commission into the AWU?
Undoubtedly. Is there a need for a Royal Commission into this matter? Undoubtedly. I think for the first time in Australian union history, one of the bosses of a union in Cambridge called for it at the time. His then solicitor, Robert McClelland from Turner Freeman Partners in Sydney, assisted in the preparation of the papers that Cambridge put before the then Industrial Relations Minister, Laurie Brereton, seeking a Royal Commission into the union. Brereton at the time didn't act on it. I think it's important to note that a letter was tabled in the Victorian Parliament from Bob Smith, one of the union bosses, that said if Cambridge isn't stopped, we're all history. And he's referring to the push for a Royal Commission. He said, Bob Smith, in that letter, that he had spoken to Jenny George and Bill Kelty and that they agreed that the push for a Royal Commission into the union ought to be stopped. Interesting turn of phrase, isn't it? If Cambridge isn't stopped, we're all history. Ultimately, there was no Royal Commission at the time, but Cambridge is not resiled from his call for one. The weight of the evidence adduced in his affidavit makes clear that these are complex matters that need to be investigated satisfactorily. Complex in that there are varying versions of events, actually quite simple if you follow the money trail. And I agree that he was right then, and his call ought to be heeded right now. You can get into some arcane discussion about whether or not there are provisions in the Fair Work Act for sufficient intensity of inquiry into a matter of this age. It may well be that, because there's two levels, one investigation, one inquiry in Fair Work. One has judicial status, one can compel witnesses, one can take evidence under oath, and the other has a more administrative status, administrative feel. The General Manager would make inquiries under one level, and Thomson was subjected to the lower level of inquiry, where Thomson wasn't compelled. Thomson did not give evidence under oath, worse luck, to Fair Work Australia. But it has some powers now which seem seldom to be exercised in a proceeding of this sort. So for clarity, for confidence and for completeness, I think a Royal Commission ought to be called into what happened here, and then we'll all know, then we can all move on. I can see no other way to satisfactorily resolve the dissonance, the tension that otherwise will be forever associated with the AWU and its members' money.
Michael Smith, you've been very generous with your time. To be a great journalist, as Alan Jones is, you have to be diligent. You have to have a sense of what is newsworthy, and I think a great respect for the common sense of your readers and listeners and so on. But above all, you have that special ingredient, which probably was shown in your other careers, perhaps not so much the symphony orchestra, but certainly the police and the regular army, and that is courage, in the vernacular guts. And you've got that in spades full. And I think Australians generally should be so appreciative to you that you've kept this issue burning and you won't resile and you are insistent that something so newsworthy, so important, so crucial to our country come out, that the truth be known. Thank you, Michael.